Hi everybody. Not going to be your usual GTA video this week, unfortunately. It tends to take me a lot more time to review results fixtures where there's a hell of a lot more complexity to why results end up happening the way they do. I could talk to you about the fact that some of that passing out from the back wasn't good enough. The decision to bring on Matt Doherty for Ryan Out-Nouri and then being unable to attack down our left-hand side. Some of our defending in wider areas being really, really suspect, especially after the way we conceded the first goal. But naturally, the overarching feeling from everyone is one of injustice at the moment. And I just wanted to kind of lay my own cards on the table. First of all, I hate doing this. I hate talking about referees, and it's probably becoming a cliche for most people that this is the hot topic at the moment. When it becomes, headline news on Sky Sports, on podcasts that we all listen to, and nobody really wants to spend their time listening to discussions around that. But I'd like to try and look at it from a bit more of a holistic perspective. While we're discussing Fulham 3, Wolves 2, I think there are so many things that happen within this game are just a symptom of a really wide problem with the way the game is governed at the moment. To start with, I was never, a fan of the idea of technology coming in to govern the game. I'm a bit of a purist in that sense. I like the idea of football just being, you know, played at that high tempo, that split second nature of it all. Mistakes happen. There's subjectivity. The game's got too many grey areas to try and make it black and white. And yes, fine, things like goal line technology have been a net positive to the game. Some of the offside stuff, to be honest, it still rankles with me the way we want to forensically analyze some of these decisions. But when it comes to some of the subjective stuff that we saw in the game last night, I think it it really kind of just speaks to the fact that the system is officially broken now. I wrote a piece about referees. I think it was in the summer, but a few months ago, specifically around kind of the idea that referees these days, they're embarking on careers within the Premier League. It's clearly a pathway to financial reward. It's a pathway to success in their own personal lives, and that kind of prestige that comes with all of that, being able to be seen on the world stage and what is the biggest platform out there, basically, especially in a sporting context. And how all of those different elements can play into the idea that it's a negative impact on the way football is played now. I think we're in a position now where football is just becoming a decisions based, end result. A lot of the time, good play isn't rewarded. A lot of the time, gamesmanship is, and I think we found that in the game yesterday. Not to say that Wolves are brilliant or deserve to win necessarily. I don't fundamentally believe that, but a game in the Premier League at the top level, televised in front of the world, was decided because of refereeing errors. And that's obviously not the first time that's happened this season. But just to kind of talk through a few things, I think where, personally, I'm a defender. I've always been one, and when you look at this again, kind of puristically as well, we're playing a game now where players are actively encouraged to commit fouls in the middle third of the pitch in transition, far away from goal, in order to prevent teams from scoring goals. And you're actually discouraged by the way the game is governed and the way the game is being played at the moment from making challenges in the penalty area. That's the total opposite of how I would view football in a puristic sense. I think it's amazing to think that as a defender, you're in your penalty area, the most dangerous part of the pitch, and you are having to behave in a manner that means things like, as an example, you're holding your arms behind your back in the event that the ball hits you on the arm and a referee could potentially give a penalty. You are making really tentative attempts to win the ball, not proper challenges, because you're worried a striker is just going to nip the ball in front of you and then go over, and the slightest sense of contact is deemed enough to give a player a chance to score a goal. We all know goals are everything in football. You know, it's not like other sports where you get many opportunities to score. Um, a goal can be so impactful on a game. We can't be finding ourselves in a situation where little situations are impacting the end result in such a way. And you know, play again. Context of yesterday's game, Fulham are a team who struggle to score lots of goals. Perhaps it's within their mindset that, winning penalties, and it's probably in the mindset of all of the teams, let's be honest, is one of their best routes to actually coming out on top in that game. Now, they've obviously worked a couple of situations into their favour. That means that they have won that game, and you can't really knock them for that. They've played the system a little bit. But again, referees have backed themselves into a corner now where, because they have a second look at things and they can do slow-mos and they can do the forensic analysis, that they can always think that they're going to land on the correct decision. But somehow they're still managing to be duped by the activities of players. Now, they can blame players for the gamesmanship element of it, and there is a genuine dishonesty to the way players play football these days, I think. Unless you're Max Kilman, of course, who was on the receiving end of a soft headbutt, as we know. But things like Harry Wilson and the way he wasn't actually looking. I think the most frustrating thing about this, when he goes to get that ball, he's not thinking about creating a chance or going to score a goal. All is in his mind is, if I nip in front of that defender, Joe Gomez, I have got a chance of winning a penalty. Tom Kearney, similar situation. He gets into the penalty area. He knows if Semedo dangles a leg, whatever you call it, and he goes down, then there's a chance that the referee might give them something. That shouldn't be a part of a player's thought processes. Again, I'm being a purist, and maybe it's a naive and quite idealistic view of the game, but it's just, we're so far gone from what is the what I would view as the proper game of football, that it just becomes an absolute shit show that we're going to end up discussing days on end, and nobody wants this to be the overarching themes around football matches. We've had a weekend where we've seen goals from like Alejandro Garnacho, which were incredible. Michael Elise, unbelievable goal. There were elements of this game which were really pleasing on the eye as well. Our first goal, I think, was a really nice goal to watch. And yet all of this is all going to be lost in the kind of maelstrom of noise around refereeing decisions. I think there are problems with the fact that, again, like I say, you're getting punished so severely with penalties now, and everything is riding. So much is riding on every decision these days. We know Fulham have had a difficult start to the season. We know we've had a difficult start to the season. We've come out looking really good, frankly, considering and being on the end of some horrible decisions as well. And I genuinely thought, when some of the referee blew his whistle on a couple of these, that maybe in the back of his mind he's thinking, oh, Wolves have actually been on the rough end of some stuff so far. Maybe we need to kind of just cut them a little bit of slack. But even then, they managed to contrive to give some really bad ones against us. But I just think we're losing the game at the moment. You compare winning the way we did against Spurs late, to legitimately brilliant goals. That is what you want to see as a football fan. And that's not always going to happen, obviously. But the method of scoring those goals, the lack of just trying to engineer things in the penalty area, that is how you want to win a game. You compare that to the way Fulham did yesterday. I don't think their fans were necessarily, I mean, they're pretty placid at the best of times anyway, but they weren't necessarily screaming from the rooftops about the fact that they won that game late in the way that they did, because VAR stoppages obviously take everything away, suck an atmosphere out of a game as well. Yes, it was a big result, but did you feel that from the way Williams' goal was celebrated? From all the consternation around those decisions. It's just everything about football is being lost because we want to make sure this game is perfect, and things, the way people apply rules now, they're almost watching, because they've got this second chance to review situations. They've probably got the rule book out next to them, reading it to the letter and trying to apply that thinking to a situation which is happening, split second decision making. I don't think it's fully appreciated. I mean, referees, having been in the thick of the action, should appreciate this, and the guys in the VAR booths should understand this. The speed at which football is played is phenomenal. I think we saw in pre-season a couple of players with body cams on. I think it was Tielemans in one of the pre-season friendlies for Villa. Anybody who watched those videos understand how quickly the game is played, and some of the split-second thoughts that have to happen to then slow the game down on replays on VAR to the extent that they are, and try and convince themselves either to back the decision that the referees made on one view, which you have to cut some slack on those sort of things, and to be honest, because I'm not a fan of VAR, I can stomach that kind of thing. If referee's got one view at it, maybe he's got an assistant to help him. If they make a decision between the two of them and trust them, maybe you just can't say fair's fair, and you will end up, I think, in those kind of scenarios, getting the balance between wrong decisions, right decisions, and things evening themselves out like they do. But now, because they've got a second chance, they've got that second opportunity to get things right, and they're still not doing it. I just don't know where we go from here. And as Gary O'Neill said, it makes no difference to him, if we're getting apologies, if where well, he asked for a bunch of flowers. It wouldn't necessarily be my first go to, but what if there is a detrimental impact on our season? We've done really well to ride it out so far. I think our petulance has reduced significantly from last season when Julian Lopetegui was in charge, and we managed to keep our heads in an admirable way, and that's all coming from the manager as well. But I just think it's slowly sucking the enjoyment out of football. Anybody who was there live yesterday, I really do sympathise with you, because you would have spent the best part of, I reckon, 15 minutes stood around waiting for VAR decisions to be made. No sense of what had happened necessarily on certain things. Just a terrible, terrible product to be asked to spend a hell of a lot of money on. And we do it, obviously, we're passionate, we're in love with our clubs, we're in love with our sport, but it's being taken away from us slowly. And the situation is going to have to come to a head at some point, and we're going to have to rectify it. And look, I'd be more than happy if VAR was gone next week. Because I just think it's a stain on the game at this moment in time. Whether it's had success at World Cups, whether it's had success in other leagues, it's not right here, and I just don't think it's the right sport to try and impose it on. And people can talk about the financial implications of it. Over the course of a 38-game league season, if you end up in the bottom three, in the top four, outside of those positions, generally speaking, you can go back to situations where you yourself, as a team, as individuals, as managers, you can have done better to ensure that you achieved the results that you wanted to. But right now, Wolves are unjustly, because of VAR, because of bad refereeing, and because of all the circumstances around those two things that affect each element, are not being justly rewarded for their performances. And that's it's not. I still don't think that was something that was happening pre-VAR. People like Fergie, obviously, hounding officials and things like that, has given rise to the situation where blame is attached to referees. I've always, playing local football and things like that, I always said to whichever team I've played in, be so good that the referee isn't a factor in the result. We weren't necessarily yesterday. Fine, it is what it is. But the atmosphere that's obviously taken hold now because we've been brought in VAR, because football fans, because football players are overgrown children and can't handle certain things, has given rise to an even worse situation. And I think it needs to be stopped as soon as possible.